Wow, well, I'm sorry to hear that, my dear.
Yeah.
I thought it was just kids being kids,
Oh,
but
no.
clearly, no, this is a...
My brother's an asshole.
Aw, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So he started picking on you at a young age, and you think that actually might have contributed to the...
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Really? Ah.
Yeah.
So it turns out that family can hurt you quite a bit.
Oh, 100%.
Ah. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through all that, but let's get back to the depression that you mentioned.
So also in grade 7, when I was 12,
You have a really good memory of, as a kid, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You can pinpoint these things. But do you think that's because it was so traumatic for you?
Yeah,
Ah.
definitely. So also in grade 12, it was also a self-esteem issue where I hated myself. I hated looking at myself, and
Okay.
and I began cutting myself.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you began cutting yourself in high school?
No, this was at the age of 12.
At the age of 12, so before high school even. So what made you decide that you wanted to start going down that road? Like, what was the thought going through your mind when you decided that it was time to start cutting?
I just felt that, physical pain was just, it could be a distraction from emotional pain, right?
Right.
And that was my reason.
And
it became almost therapeutic for me, and I became addicted to it.
Right.
I couldn't stop cutting.
Really?
Yeah.
So would you say that the emotional pain was so bad that you wanted to transform it into something that just you could feel? Mm-hmm. And you became addicted to cutting yourself. So how long did that go for? And you don't still cut yourself, do you?
No.
Okay.
No.
So when did you realize that there was a problem and that you needed to kind of change the way that you were doing things or handling things?
This was about not too long after I started, actually.
Okay.
Like, I realized that I just had to stop, because I was actually, the reason why I stopped was just like, I was scared of people finding out. Like, my parents, I didn't want my teachers to find out. I didn't want like, my friends to find out. So I knew I had to stop.
Right.
Just for that reason. And so when I stopped, that emotional pain just it stayed within me. I just bottled it up and dealt with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story with us so far. It sounds like it was a pretty rough childhood for you. And when you were cutting yourself, I mean, did you try to hide? I don't know a lot about those that do cut themselves or have cut themselves. We have had some on the show. Did you hear from someone that might be a good thing to do? What made you think that was something that would help?
I don't remember.
You don't remember sort of the reason behind it? You just thought one day. Do you mind if I ask where you felt was a good spot to cut?
Just along my wrist.
Along your
on
wrist.
Both of them.
But you weren't ever trying to end your life by doing
No.
that. Just okay.
No.
Did you find that it was relief for a period of time by doing it? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And then you didn't want your family or your teachers or anything to find out. So did you just stop automatically, or did you?
No, it took a while, because like I said, I became addicted to it. I tried to stop so many times, and I just kept doing it. So I would wear like long sleeves. I would wear like something on my wrist to kind of cover it up.
Right.
Yeah, that was my way.
And what was the final sort of the end of the road where you stopped? Like how did you stop?
Like, I was terrified of my parents finding out. That was just like, that was it. Like, if my parents found out, they would go batshit crazy on me, honestly. Because, like, mental health with them is not a thing.
Right.
Right? If they saw me cutting myself, they would just be like, okay, you're absolutely insane. You're crazy, kind of type of thing. Not like, you don't need help. You're crazy, and that's it. That's that. Right.
And so it's and that's very, very common. I mean, it's just now we're making this huge leap where I know that with my kids and with my daughter, I'll definitely understand if they come to me and express the way that they feel. But even with my family, I mean, they didn't know what to do with me, and they tried their best. But when someone doesn't really understand it, and I think a lot of the older generations didn't, and they're starting to if they have an open mind. But I think your parents probably did their best. Would you agree, or do you think there was room for better than I do? That's me making an assumption to try to make things a little smoother here. But you tell me.
I honestly don't believe that my parents really tried with me.
Okay.
They definitely could have done better. They could definitely try to understand because they're very strict. They're very closed-minded, and it's like what I say goes type of thing, right? They're not there to open their minds to listen to me. It's just like what they say goes, and that is that. It's
sort of a discipline. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what age was this when you stopped cutting yourself?
I believe 13.
13. So like a full year you probably went dealing with the pain you were feeling emotionally, trying to get rid of that somehow, and cutting your wrists was your outlet. And then you just stopped because of fear, right? And then what happened? And then tell me the rest. When you went to high school, how did you handle high school?
High school, I still had like all that emotional pain. I just kind of bottled it up, and I realized I didn't realize that it was a problem. I knew like my self-esteem was an issue. It's just I didn't understand the concept of mental health at the time, right?
Right.
I didn't know that, like, looking back, I know that I was depressed at this time, right? But at the time, I didn't know the signs of depression. I didn't know that what I had was a problem, right? So I just kind of...
And who does at that age, really?
Exactly, right? I really want younger people to just really understand the signs so that when they do see their signs in themselves, they reach out for help. Because I feel like if I had reached out for help at this time, I would have been just a lot happier today.
Right.
And throughout high school, I bottled it up, and I was hurting just internally. I dealt with it.
And do you think that a lot of it had to do with you're clearly, and this is not a bad thing, I mean this as a compliment, you're clearly a sensitive young woman, right? And that's a great thing when it's not sort of internalized, right? When you can put that out there to help the world, that's fantastic. But when someone's calling you a name or something and you're sensitive, you can walk around thinking about that all day. Like, was that kind of the way that you took things?
If anything kind of relatively bad happened, like just a little thing, I would overthink it. Like I would just think about it all day, like for the next week. And, you know, it really affected me. Like with depression, like just sad emotions just affect you that much more, right? I think.
Right. So you've been dealing with depression, would you say off and on, or is it kind of a continuing thing? Like you've dealt with sort of chronic depression, or?
Definitely chronic. You know, I now have gotten a lot better, but back then I feel like my days were either bad or worse. Right. And today, like, I've gotten a lot better. I think my days are either, you know, okay or good.
Good.
Right?
Good. Well, that's good news.
Thank you.
Yeah, good for you. And congratulations, because that's an amazing place to get to. Tell me how you got there. How did you get how did you go from having a shitty day or a shittier day to having an okay day or a good day? That's a huge transformation.
So I actually wasn't diagnosed with depression until my 3rd year of university. So that is 8 whole years of me being depressed and not knowing it, right?
Right.
So it wasn't until I actually had to be told that I was depressed because I didn't realize it. But when I was told that I was depressed, everything just made sense, right?
Sure.
And so after that, my doctor put me on medication, antidepressants, and then got me to do a CBT program, so cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
It was like a self-help type of thing, just because I couldn't afford psychologists are expensive,
they are.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so I just did a self-help for I think 7 months.
What did you use?
The program was called Bounce Back, and basically they just you know, you have like a coach and they send you like these books on different aspects of your life. And then, you just kind of read them and try to change your way of thinking. I guess like CBT is all about changing your way of thinking, like understanding why do I feel this way and getting to the root of the problem and then changing it, just looking at it from a different perspective so that you're not always thinking of it in a negative light.
Right. Yeah. We do... myself and a few other gentlemen, Paul O'Byrne and Scott Millen, we do every Sunday, we do what's called Soulfire Sundays. And right now we're going through, have you heard of Lucinda Bassett?
No.
Okay, so Lucinda Bassett developed a 15-week program using cognitive behavioral therapy to attack anxiety, depression, and stress, basically, because these skills, and you'll probably agree with me since you've dealt with this at a young age, I think that this stuff should be taught in schools, in public 100%. School. Like, if we had learned how to deal with our emotions and our feelings, I think we would all be just stronger human beings by now, right? And so good for you for doing that course. That's fantastic. And I love CBT as well. I think it's great. And we discuss it regularly. So, I mean, I think last week we talked about, no, it wasn't assertive behavior. It was talking about getting off the guilt and worry treadmill. And so one of the lines that I love is that if you're feeling guilty, you're in the past. And if you're worrying, you're in the future. And what's important is right here in this present moment. That's where you find happiness. And that's sort of what I took away from that week. But, I mean, do you have sayings like that you kind of think of when you're... Give me an example of, like... When you have a shitty thought in your head, what do you do? What's one of the first go-to sort of, and I call them cliche sayings because a lot of the time they are like, this too shall pass. It might be cliche, but it's true. So what do you think of? What are your go-tos?
I guess I don't really have a saying per se. I constantly remember that negative thinking is a constant cycle. You think negatively, and then something happens to you, you continue to think negatively, and it's just a constant cycle, right? You have to break that cycle in order to be better, right?
Right.
And I constantly have that just engraved into my mind.
Right. So what do you do to break your cycle?
Just kind of just taking a step back, looking at a situation in a different light, just thinking of different perspectives to look on it. If you're out on the street, someone like you wave to someone but they don't wave back. Maybe it's not that they don't like you, maybe it's that they didn't see you, maybe they're not wearing their glasses. I don't know. You just think of different ways to look at it, right?
Sure. Don't take it so personally. Okay. Very, very cool. I love that. And do you do any kind of relaxation techniques or meditation or anything?
I don't currently, but I recently learned that I have like generalized anxiety, and my doctor says like I have to he says I should do like meditation and stuff. I don't really know how to meditate.
I'll show you. I've got cushions right behind you. You see what's right behind you there?
I do.
Yeah. So what I practice is called mindful meditation. There's different kinds, but there's visualization, there's relaxation, there's multiple kinds of meditation, if you will. But this is the kind that sort of you trace it back and the lineage goes all the way back to Japan, to the samurai, and to individuals who really were considered Buddhas. They were enlightened. So I can teach you how to do it, but just so you know, it's something that you need to do for this is a lifetime practice, but you will become a stronger individual for doing it for sure.
Yeah. On a side note, I am Buddhist. I'm just a really bad Buddhist that doesn't know how to meditate.
Well, you know what? Good for you, because Buddhism itself is a fantastic. It's not a religion. It's a fantastic spiritual practice. We'll call it that, right? So, is there anything in your story that, if we go back, let's go and talk about some other sort of aha moments for you? I mean, we briefly discussed sitting down and talking, and you've sort of told me about your experience being a mute, would you say?
Yeah.
Is that properly? Am I saying that properly?
It's selective mutism.
Selective mutism.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we've talked about you dealing with emotions on a level where you ended up sort of trying to express yourself through physical pain by cutting yourself. We've talked about growing up in sort of a stricter household where your brother didn't have a lot of compassion for the way that you felt. And that's unfortunate. It really is. I'm sorry. I hate it, because sometimes the worst pain comes from family. And is there anything else that we want to make sure that you talk about your whole story here, because I know you didn't want to miss anything. So you tell me where we're going to next.
Okay. So I'm going to take it back to my first year. I'm going back to the social anxiety.
Okay.
And so...
This is first year at Western?
First year at Western, yeah.
Okay.
And so I was diagnosed with very severe social anxiety. Like I just...
At this time in first year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And...
Who diagnosed you?
My family doctor.
Family doctor? Okay.
And I just didn't leave my room. I was in res, and I actually just didn't leave my room unless it was to go to class or to eat, and that was it. I had friends in my first year. I had friends in res. I I had friends. It's just like I completely withdrew from